In this installment, apologies to USA Network's The Dead Zone and especially the 4400, which I may have slighted in a recent comment. I'll talk about inspiration from classic hit Elvis Presley songs, finally watching the movies that turn up in my classic collection and some of what I'm looking forward to, and in what I've been watching, Preacher seems like a good bet. Welcome to the show.
He doesn't have that on video, does he? We'll find out together on video, Fuzzy.
I'll start with my Friday night feature, the series finales of 4400 and The Dead Zone, which I may owe an apology.
Friday night feature!
I suggested a couple episodes back that the 4400 may have been building to something, but ended before it got there. I think I know what, in my memory from nearly a decade removed, I was reacting to, but in retrospect, I wasn't being fair. The 4400 was excellent storytelling, especially for a USA Network cable series that might not have had a lot to work with in the way of resources. I loved the song that played over the beautifully rendered opening credits, Our Place in Time by Amanda Abazayed. I loved the mystery the show explored, how one day 4,400 persons reported missing from months ago to decades in some cases suddenly reappeared in the Pacific Northwest with no memory of where they'd been or signs of having aged. In a small number of cases, the returnees began to manifest paranormal abilities. One of them, Lily, is discovered upon her return to be pregnant. The structure served the show very well for the first couple of seasons. The investigative team of Tom Baldwin and Diana Scores, the National Threat Assessment Command, NTAC, determined that the 4400 were abducted not by aliens, but by humans in the future, hoping to avert a disaster. I'm fuzzy on the details here. I think I remember this revelation extends from a storyline that revolved around a bridge, and the investigators are a significant part of this discovery that the future is communicating through one of the returnees, but not with any clarity, and suddenly the link is lost, which, knowing that that had been the case, it feels like future humans would have locked in that communication somehow, but it's possible there's alternate timelines involved which would account for the lockout, but not for the returnees. That is, if they're from an alternate timeline, how did they show up in this one? Open time loops are hard to track, and there's way too much luck involved. In the meantime, seasons into this thing, you can't just keep discovering new returnees with new paranormal abilities. There's a storyline that emerges organically that accounts for the abilities, a protohuman neurotransmitter called promycin, which is awesome because visually it glows a bioluminescent green and raises an absolutely fantastic ethical dilemma. Exposure to promycin either gives rise to unpredictable and sometimes outlandish superpowers, or it kills you. Less willing to throw that out into the population, the government began developing a promycin inhibitor, which, wow, that was fast, giving rise to a defensive group within the promycin-positive 4400 who manifest abilities. Jordan Collier emerges as a leader within the 4400 who styles himself as a messianic savior of mankind, and we discover competing factors among future kind. One, the Marked, who opposes the change sought by the other group who sent the promycin-infused returnees. Investigator Tom Baldwin, stalwart champion of humanity from the first episode, is either suborned as one of the Marked or replaced by one, lending a zhuzh of drama to the final season. There was a lot going on with Jordan Collier's disappearance and something with Isabel aging incredibly quickly, and Tom's son, I think, was leading the 4400 Center leading into the series finale. Upon confirmation that Tom is marked, his friends and colleagues seek to cure him by killing the tiny machines in his body that are controlling him. He flatlines, then revives, horrified by incomplete memories of having done bad things. No time to dwell on that, however, because Danny has taken the promycin shot and discovers his promycin unlocked ability is the production of and airborne distribution of promycin, which still kills half the people exposed to it, including his mother and some EMTs and people at the hospital she was taken to. When he realizes what's happening, he goes into hiding and makes it to the center, which is cool because everyone there is already exposed to promycin and is doing just fine. The drama in the finale came from Tom finding Jordan Collier and being kidnapped himself, then Isabel rescuing both of them before she's killed, then even quarantined, Danny's still infecting everyone with promycin, so he takes the inhibitor. This stops the infections, but his body can't stop producing promycin, so he seeks to die to end his suffering. Meanwhile, over at NTAC, agents are dying from promycin poisoning. Everyone who survives is promycin positive, and some begin to manifest abilities, all except for Diana, who seems immune. It is suspected because of her early exposure in the promycin trials and potentially a compound called ubiquinone, which her body is producing in greater than average quantities and which is available for distribution as a supplement. Jordan Collier resumes his post as the head of the 4400 Center and de facto mayor of Seattle, renamed via graffiti as Promise City, which I'm sorry to say I just figured out was a Promycin reference. Promycin Promise City. Thought it was pretty cool. The series finale does set up a powerful showdown between Diana's resistance to Jordan as dictator of Seattle and 4400 returnee and adopted daughter Maya's assertion of his dream of heaven on earth. This is, I think, why I thought the storytelling was incomplete, but the season finale also served as a perfectly good series finale. I mean, my instincts were that there was more story to tell with this show, and I do indeed wish they'd been given the opportunity to do so. But I feel like the 4400 wrapped things up just fine, and in its final moments threw open a window for us on the next stage of human evolution. The Dead Zone was much less complicated. After seasons of searching, Johnny meets up with his father with enough time to warn Sarah about Stilson, a ne'er-do-well politician who is seeking to marry her to fulfill a prophecy. Johnny sees his own vision of an apocalyptic future if this comes to pass, and as it happens, so does his son JJ when Stilson shoves him away and JJ hits his head and gets a vision, the same one Johnny's been seeing. Johnny's reunion with his father is short-lived when it turns out his father's been poisoned by a Stilson operative. The season finale closes on his normalized relationship with Sarah and JJ. That's one issue with choosing any given episode of a series, even a finale, as the Friday night feature. I can watch how a story plays out, but if I haven't watched a show in nearly a decade or more, it's hard to recall the pertinent details that made the loose-end tie-ups as compelling. I'd more or less forgotten about the final season adventures of Tom and Diana in the 4400, and I'd really forgotten the Dead Zone beyond Anthony Michael Hall would walk into a situation, touch something, and see the exact scrap of detail he needs to solve some sort of a problem. That said, I felt like, having sat down and rewatched the finale, that I owed the memory at least something of an apology. They wrapped things up just fine, and if they'd been given a fifth season, they for sure had places to go with it. Just as a quick aside, I noted the past few episodes where my Friday night feature was drawn for my current viewing, or otherwise a bit contemporary. That is, my Psych episode Frankendisc commentary could literally have been any episode I stitched back together and what that entailed, whereas my actual review commentary, Bridge to Terabithia, arose from my more current viewing. I feel like if I'm going to be true to the spirit of this project, the Friday night feature, should I choose to include one, ought to arise from my classic VHS to DVD collection. That way I'm reviewing something truly from the vault, something that I haven't seen in years. I'll chat in whatever detail I feel it merits about any shows that cross my field of vision, but if I've got a Friday night feature at all, that's where it should really come from. Also, just as a structural issue, I think it's cool to listen to my podcast here and read my posted catalog online as I make progress with it. I'm not sure it's of much value to also blog this report, just as a too long didn't read issue. If you see anything in the catalog listing you'd like more information about, by all means shoot me an email. Otherwise, this podcast can really stand alone and be its own thing, I think. What I've been watching. Well, What I'd been watching recently was some water dripping down the cabinetry when an aging pipe burst in my kitchen last weekend. Beyond some initial cleanup and meetings with insurance adjusters, plumbers, and restoration service providers, that took up a lot of time, energy, and focus I might otherwise have spent putting a podcast together. That brings me to the Elvis hit I referenced in my opening comments. No, we didn't have to check into the Heartbreak Hotel for any of this, but I feel like last weekend I was able to watch some additional shows and make some additional progress on my cataloging than I would have had I been writing up this report and recording it. I feel like the podcast portion of this process is important. I've missed the opportunity to chat and share my views about past and current media. This project gives me a creative outlet, a jumping off point to reflect on what's out there, and a chance to explore what has drawn my attention in the past and comment on what I feel about it now. As a friend recently described it, my comments on my own media collection over time comprise a uniquely autobiographical showcase that I feel is worthy of exploration. At the same time, it is a project I do want to make some actual headway on. If I spend every weekend writing this up and recording it, no small investment in time or energy, that is time I don't have to pursue the cataloging portion of this project. Less time to catalog means less to chat about in the podcast, and it becomes a vicious cycle whereby I catch a few hours here and there during any given week, and suddenly it's the weekend and I've got not much to talk about, unless I quickly shotgun 8 hours of media, scramble some thoughts together, and bang anything out for public consumption, and there went my whole weekend. That's where I turn to no less a luminary than the king himself for advice, to wit, a little less conversation, a little more action, please. If I pause to put this thing together every other weekend, I have 2 weeks worth of material to draw on, I have more time to contemplate what I'll be chatting about, and ultimately more context to put it in. It feels like the right move to make. We'll see how it works out in practice. Currently, what I've been watching is Preacher on AMC, but I can't recommend it one way or the other. Rather, this show, like Colony on USA and The Magicians on Sci-Fi, is a returning series of which I did not catch nor even ever hear about the first season. Unlike those other shows, however, promos for the show were sufficiently engaging for me to set my DVR and record new and repeats of the series, and my DVR collected all 10 episodes of the first season and the show so far of season 2. I have managed to watch maybe 4 episodes so far, and I am enjoying the crap out of them, but they have all been from season 1. So, for sure, season 1 of Preacher starts out fantastic. It's based on a graphic novel wherein a parish priest in an outlying diocese encounters an otherworldly power that gives him supernatural abilities. Well, the mind control, certainly. He may have developed his hand-to-hand fighting skills elsewhere. I've never read the graphic novels. Together with a colorful coterie that includes an enforcer at a whorehouse and a strung-out British vampire, he's fighting the good fight in a backwater Texas burg, holding off heavenly strongmen who seek to repossess the power they say he stole. I'd say it's a good bet throughout, but then I was once upon a time pretty enthusiastic about The Walking Dead, too, which also arose from a graphic novel and started out pretty well on AMC. It was already chafing me by the end of the first season, and I had to quit watching it by the middle of the second, which my sister insists, shut up, I'm wrong, that it's awesome, and so be it. Along with 7 top-rated seasons, the Shambling Dead Things are returning for an 8th and have already spun off at least one returning series and a couple of commercial chat ventures, so my disinterest in them has in no way been contagious. Preacher airs Sunday nights on AMC. What else? I finally got a chance to take in Reno 911's Niecy Nash in her new TNT project Claws, which is a coke-fueled roller coaster ride by way of Miami's South Beach. Desna owns and operates a nail salon that does superior work despite its low-rent location. Her team makes ends meet by coordinating a money laundering operation with an OxyContin pill mill run by the Dixie Mafia and local strip club owner Uncle Daddy, played brilliantly by Breaking Bad's Dean Norris. When his second-in-command, Roller, turns up dead, he swears vengeance, and also sows chaos among his subordinates by orchestrating a heist at the pill mill and taking it out on the money launderers. It seems to Desna that her dreams of opening a high-end nail salon are forever out of her reach, but for the sake of her team members and her mentally disturbed brother, she keeps her eye on the prize. Claws is a wild ride. There's a lot of tension written into this story, and there's a lot of criminal activity. That said, these characters are engaging and their struggles are relatable. I mean, you find yourself cheering for them as they seek to build better, stable, less criminal lives for themselves and their families, all the while regarding the many crimes they're compelled to commit in that pursuit. Money laundering, prescription pill fraud, collusion, theft, murder, false testimony, tampering with evidence, blackmail, and framing others for their crimes, just to name a few, as simply a means to an end. Claws airs Sunday nights on TNT.
Diving into the classic collection.
Tracking through my VHS to DVD collection, we are still in the 2007 zone. I caught a scrap of video from an ABC News production called I Caught, in which someone thought it was a good idea many, many years into this whole internet thing to highlight viral videos and get at the story behind them, like tracking down the Numa Numa guy, and show some of the video parodies that spawned and what's happened to him since then, where he appeared on some television program. My initial reaction to this is that if it's a viral video, it is because everyone who wants to see it already has. So I'm not surprising that this 6-part series fell by the wayside. Perhaps more useful in terms of social commentary, however, is that they also sent out a request for people to submit scraps of video highlighting their week in 3 words. Over the melancholy strains of the plain white tea's Hey There Delilah, people's mostly anonymous videos reacting to such diverse topics as imminent childbirth, their cancer diagnosis, the loss of their father, deployment of relatives, and the love of family floated across the screen as slice-of-life snapshots. Beyond the cloying manipulation of the music, I've got to say I was touched by the notes they included. People deal with a lot in their lives, and their willingness to share it can bring us together. Fragmented as our media landscape is today, it's hard to believe such a project could have the power to bring us together now, but maybe if they compiled such a thing it could possibly go viral? Dare to dream. Beyond the series finales of The Dead Zone and the 4400, I see I caught the finales for The Business and the minor accomplishments of Jackie Woodman on IFC. Both shows were pretty fun, but I was not just too surprised to see them go. I see where I encountered a few more episodes of News Radio, a David Foley project from the 1990s featuring Phil Hartman. These ran in syndication on TBS while I was at work in Minot, I believe, and I'd come home and watch them over my lunch hour. Once I discovered they were airing them, I set my DVR, and I believe I caught most of the series, which I love. I was thinking about this, and I gained a renewed appreciation for this project. I thought back about it, and I still have so very many discs to catalog, and I wondered what seriously am I going to find on these things? Just a bunch of old episodes of The Simpsons I could burn through in a couple of months if I sat in front of FXX with my eyes blocked open like that scene from A Clockwork Orange? Mayhaps. But I also remember a few series I'm looking forward to discovering as I work through these discs. I've got practically all of the sci-fi reboot of Battlestar Galactica to look forward to, along with the Caprica spin-off. I've got damn near all of the S.H.I.E.L.D. on these things somewhere. I've got Tori Amos concerts. I've got my so-called Life episodes. I mean, I recently ran into Jon Stewart's Daily Show interview with then-Senator Barack Obama, and I realized that since I started cataloging these discs again, I've been stuck in a very small set of VHS transfers, all recorded toward the very end of George Bush's second term. I have about 2,300 discs to look at yet. There is no telling what is on all these things. I'm encountering plenty of variety. Along with favorite shows I was recording week to week, I also found a number of Agatha Christie productions featuring David Suchet as Hercule Poirot that aired on A&E's Biography channel. And I found where I recorded a copy of Guillermo del Toro's Pan's Labyrinth, and I was going to skip past it until I remembered that I've recorded that thing at least a couple different times. I've never actually watched it. So I thought it was worth it to take the time last weekend to actually view the thing. It was astonishing. Uh, I thought some of the problems Ophelia faced were Ophelia-sized problems. Her mother expects her to stay clean and freshly laundered for a state dinner, but she runs out into the muddy forest on a quest. Little girls who aren't on a quest to prove themselves the Moon Princess might muddy their shoes fighting monsters. I mean, they might eat from tables set just so, more out of hunger than disobedience. I mean, they might follow a butterfly through a magical realm and lose all track of time because they're children. But her punishment seemed for the most part constrained to a stern talking to and bedtime without dinner. When she runs afoul of her potential stepfather, the general, however, she is in a fight for her life, which does seem a bit outsized for a little girl, not to mention defeating a gigantic toad at the behest of an ancient faun. I mean, she mostly slips beneath the attentions of the palace intrigue beyond a prima facie awareness of it, and is transfigured by her ordeal. It is a dark movie, at times scary, and as a Spanish language film, watching it with subtitles for sure helped me keep up. Um, I know I've recorded this movie more than once, but I was happy more than 10 years later to finally sit down and watch it. I also noted where I'd recorded the 1947 version of Oscar Wilde's An Ideal Husband off of Turner Classic Movies, but I let that one lie. I've seen the 1999 version, and while I know I'd enjoy the more contemporary perspective, I will just have to come back to that one. Current collection. In my direct-to-DVD recordings, I managed to make a little more progress this time. I cataloged a few episodes of ABC's embattled series Powerless, which was so susceptible to cuts it seemed to get preempted by roving gangs of commercials sometimes. Having viewed this situation for a few decades now, a good test for whether a series will get cancelled is to ask the question, do I like it? The answer is usually the same for both. And if I really like it, it will get preempted and moved around a few times before getting cancelled. I caught a scrap or two of dialogue from The Son of Zorn, enough to identify the episode, not enough to understand why I kept even that, though it is fun to type a few words of dialogue into a search window and be rewarded with a show and an episode title. Also, How to Marry a Millionaire, where I believe it was Lauren Bacall talking about trapping a millionaire, like setting a bear trap. We don't have to catch a herd, she said, just one nice big fat one. I also see where this set of discs features my first couple of episodes I saved of Legion, featuring Gene Smart and Aubrey Plaza. I'd love to kick back and rewatch these sometime when I've got more time. That series is astonishing. I also caught all the season of The Magicians along with a couple from the first season. My hope is that if the show returns that they will run all of them in a marathon showing ahead of it, because this is one interesting show. I see where I saved an episode of Taboo off FX. I only got a few altogether, enough to know I'd love to watch the whole series sometimes. Just too much going on when they were airing the thing. I also caught Turner Classic Movies' presentation of Cabaret in this set, the Cinemax version of Sweeney Todd, The Demon Barber of Fleet Street by Tim Burton featuring Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter. I also see where I recorded The Zodiac Killer, which stars no one and features nothing. The film proudly announced it was not submitted for crass award considerations, which, after watching, I agreed should definitely be the case. Oh, and apologies to Mike Myers for getting his name wrong and commenting on The Gong Show recently. He's playing Tommy Maitland, not Peter Maitland. Of course, both names are completely made up, but I do like to be accurate where possible. Now, who's a cheeky monkey? Beyond that, thank you so much for checking in with me again. You can check out my catalog listing along with audio links at videofuzzy.blogspot.com and past episodes of this podcast at iTunes and videofuzzy.libsyn.com. Feedback is always appreciated. You can contact me through my blog or podcast sites or through my Video Fuzzy page on Facebook. For Video Fuzzy, I'm Terry J. Amon. Happy viewing.
It might be amazing, it might just be scuzzy. We'll find out together on Video Fuzzy.